Good morning, good afternoon, for most of you, I'm sure. Welcome to another edition of Let's Build Your Audience. Here with Mr. Joshua Oakes. How you doing today, man?
I am doing pretty well, although as we are doing this live, it's Thursday, April 17th, which means I can only wish you a pre-happy birthday. Is that correct?
That's correct. My birthday is tomorrow. This is the last day of my 42nd year on this earth, and as a big fan of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Hitchhiker's Guide
Galaxy,
to the Galaxy,
I
yes.
feel like I have learned uh, the meaning of life and everything in this 42nd year. And I'm trying everything in my power to start sharing it. Some of that is coming back a little too fast for me right now, but we're figuring it out. It's good to know that a lot of what I've been learning and sharing is resonating with a lot of people. And, the whole goal of what we're talking about today is like we said last time, it's like there are things that we do and that we try to help companies with that just either the thing that we're supposed to do for them doesn't make any sense at all anymore because it's in 2025. Maybe it never made sense in the first place. Um, or everybody agrees that the next step is a very common sense thing that should be easy, but somehow is not. uh, and everybody, the things that we talk about in management meetings every week, that everybody's like nodding your heads, and then we never take any action or move forward on it. Um, it's
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like at the same time, when we talk about those stories, it resonates with everybody,
Yep.
right? So last time we talked about the value first framework and introduced a little bit. Um, but the core point of at the heart of this, like traditional B2B treats people like leads
Hmm.
and tries to process them through mechanical stages. That we've come up with so many different words for life cycle and stages and sales process and funnels and flywheels and whatever.
Right.
I'm realizing as I try to explain this to people, that one of the values I think is here is we're actually like identifying the human beings and giving them human being related labels like audience researcher, hand raiser, like instead of interest,
Hmm.
engagement, consideration.
Yeah, and like sales process labels, like that's the other one too. Yeah, like awareness, consideration. They're uh, like so many
Lead.
frameworks. Like you could do worse than that, right? But
Yeah,
then we get tied to these constructs.
yeah. And so we have basically industrial age thinking that thinks we can do all of this like a factory, right? And as much as I love somebody trying to standardize, like in a very quality management system kind of way, which I'm from manufacturing, like ISO 9001. You think about the reasons why we're here on the customer side, and everybody's figured out lean, and they just know how to run things and document things, and we've never figured that out over here. And then when I first learned about winning by design and the bow tie, it's like, oh, finally somebody is working on standardizing this. But as I've been going through this process, it's like it's just not a linear journey, like, and it's never going to be. So
Yeah,
if we try to apply like structure based on factory like management models, I just think we're building unrealistic expectations. And this is where we feel it. We create the friction. It has not gone down like ever. It has only gone up.
yeah,
Diminishing returns continue to increase, right? With all the things that we're used to doing.
right.
And so as I co-author this framework and this path with AI, it very like simply says like don't get in the way of value, right? Like let it flow. If it's just like when I first started talking about customer experience. And like one of my favorite slides that everybody can get behind is we need to make it easier for people to buy and easier for people to be successful with whatever they're buying. Right. And when I want to buy right now and I've got to talk to a salesperson instead of just being able to click a button on a website like I can on Amazon, that is not aligned with the value flow that could be happening there. Like you want me to pay, you want me to be a buyer, and you won't let me in that moment,
Right.
right? So we have two willing participants that are like, yeah, you made this thing, like you're so good, you knew exactly the problem I have, you built the exact thing that solves for it. And now for all of these different reasons that we've been talking about, KPIs, sales compensation, like all these different constructs that get in the way, do not allow me to do that in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I'll share my screen here just to give this quick recap. Let's see, maybe this is a little bit bigger, right? And so I broke it up. Thanks to Mr. Oaks here. Like credit to the seed that you planted of this path to value,
Hmm.
right? From basically from lead, like I'll use some of these words to help get the point across, from lead to close, right? This space of, you know, how we help people find value, right? And
Yeah, and I'll sorry to interrupt, but I'll add that that is often the when I'm working with clients on path to value, that framing, that industrial age framing, as you said, is also something that I try to fight against because I talk about path to value being the path from the prospect's current world, the way that they understand their problem now, even if their understanding of that problem is incomplete and insufficient, and their vision of like what a solution looks like is insufficient or not actually informed by the realities of what they're trying to achieve. But they do have an end goal in mind, and the transaction or engagement or relationship that your company offers them is sometimes viewed as the end of your sales process, but it's often step one of them achieving that goal, or step maybe three out of 100 or whatever.
right,
That the path to value is not your sales process. Your sales process is like a labyrinth that they have to navigate and negotiate and escape in order to achieve that value. So if you want to uh, uh, lead with value, right, you have to get into the world where they understand their problem at the beginning of that journey. And if part of the value that you're offering them is helping them understand that problem better, like health and fitness journeys are often, in this case, all self improvement journeys are like this, where it's like, oh, I have this thing that I don't want anymore. And I think exercise can help me get there. But how do I plan? How do I eat? How do, all of these complicated things? But I have a long term vision of whatever, like low cholesterol or something. Um,
yeah,
the the value that you want to lead with meets them in that incomplete understanding, right? And so the how I think that path to value aligns with value first that you're describing here is like we're going way closer to the customer where we've reached the beginning of our sales process and we are still looking at those customers who are way out there on the horizon, and we're just going to keep going till we get to them they where they are right now.
yeah. And we'll just hit on these four real quick,
Yeah.
because I've got a great story. You know, and I'm sorry, like the language is fluffy, folks, but it's literally um, so people in their earliest moments of possibility, right? They usually don't. They're not looking for anything at this point. Um, and the traditional approach is trying to interrupt their daily whatever and try to capture them as a lead, right? When instead we're trying to create safe spaces for natural discovery. And it's just like, get over. the fluffy language, this is what it is. Like,
Hmm.
I am living my life, right? I'm doing my job, has nothing to do with you. There's no reason for me to think about you, like in those moments. And what the only way you can show up for me is if I happen to start thinking about something or something I'm already doing, like scrolling, the feed, is on my terms. I'm not pressured at all. I'm going to click the button because I want to in that moment and for no other reason. Right. And a safe space means I'm going to do that and with no fear of getting a call like 5 minutes later or showing up on some list or
Hmm.
whatever the reasons that we prevent ourselves now from, like, am I going to see all these ads now? Like when I go everywhere, if I click on this thing,
Yeah.
right? All of the reasons we give them to not feel safe, right? Is what we're talking about. And Marcus Sheridan made a post, and he's been preaching about it like since like They Ask You Answer came out in 2017,
Yeah.
right? And somebody comments about buying guide, right? Because it was about pricing and like why are we still gating buying guides was his whole point. And somebody commented and it's like, well, how do we follow up with them? And I said, uh, you don't. Like it's on their terms.
Yeah.
They're gonna reach out. And then it was like, well, how do we know when to follow up on their terms? It's like, no, like here's all the other things. It's your contact form, all the other ways you've given them to reach out to you and move through this cycle and get to hand raiser.
Yeah.
Like, and we don't like that loss of control at the end of the day. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it is, as you've said, industrial age thinking, right? Like we produce materials like that uh, in the early days, where HubSpot's roots go all the way back to for the value exchange. Uh, it was amazing to have materials like that at the beginning. It has become a scenario where or reality where you publish something like that and we'll offer it on LinkedIn if somebody comments on your post, and then it's like the most reductive, awful, least useful buying guide or whatever, that you could just ask ChatGPT and get the same answers, right? There's nothing of distinct value about it. And the answer to, well, how do we know when to follow up is, I think you are correct. You don't, except that your buyer's guide or whatever that resource is should be, your first one won't be, but should be so incredible that they download it and it doesn't just sit on their desktop forever and then they never open it again. But it should speak to them so clearly where they are at, what they want to know, what they're trying to accomplish, help them frame the problem, right, in an effective way, that there is just no possibility that any competing angle um, could uh, take it off the table for them, right? Like that buyer's guide shouldn't just be a list of features and then pricing. It should
Yeah.
be, you know, unreasonably compelling, whatever that piece of content is.
Right. And it's often like, so the reason that in any of these stages, the reason why the salesperson generally wants control is because they know if they can get on the call, like they're going to close because that's when they deliver the value
Right.
and that's when they build trust. And that's the part that doesn't make sense to people. When if you put that value into the buying guide, they're going to be so compelled to reach out to you directly, like on a place on LinkedIn or, and that's where we got to in this little exchange. It's like, there's all these form places like quote request and the regular contact page, the info at the sales at that they could all reach out to. But hopefully you've got a bunch of SMEs participating in the buying guide, and it's very clear on who's delivering the value. And then it's very easy to reach out to you directly, which they will do, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how amazing is it to start a relationship in that way, right? Which is the whole purpose. When you let us do it on our terms, you start from a place of trust that is just easier to build on and easier to build forward momentum and all that stuff, right? So the rest, I think, fairly things that we're used to. I'm in research mode. Okay, I'm ready to talk to somebody, so I'm going to raise my hand. Um, and if you want to reach out, I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody. Like, tell me why you feel like you need to reach out to them before this part, and I will give you 10 reasons why you don't need to do that and why you
Yeah.
shouldn't do that, right? Um, and then we have highly empowered revenue opportunities that are building conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so moving past the point of closed, um, and this, I was like adopter, advocate, and champion were fairly easy to place. Those aren't even that far off from the way we usually like name things in this spot. But this stage here, like if we're talking about um, like the life cycle stages that you get in HubSpot, like after closed one, somebody's a customer, right? And that's often a label. Maybe it's like in the bow tie model, it's onboarding, right? But where is the place in HubSpot land where we see all of the problems? Onboarding and adoption,
Yeah.
right? So when I catch on to things like, okay, well, this is the customer stage, but we're calling it the customer journey. But at the system thinks like they got to pay us money first
Yeah.
before we call them a customer. And then we're supposed to design this customer experience that starts way up here when they're like, if we're not calling them a customer, like we're not managing the experience before they give us money.
Right.
And that's what allows for all of the disconnects up here because we do it on our terms because we don't consider them a customer. And this gets real easy. Like if you can apply the customer journey and the customer experience, like once they interact with you, like that's when you could consider them a customer. And even to the point of if there's a value exchange, even if it's just an email address for information, like that's a customer, right? And now you design a journey for the whole thing, right? So then I was like, oh, what the hell do I call this stage then? And I asked Claude, it gave me 10 options. I'll be honest, like value creator was the one I hated the most, probably right off the bat, because I was like, well, just a mouthful and just doesn't like sound right.
Mm-hmm.
But the more like the others sounded cool, but the more I thought about it, like one of the challenges is that the person buying the hero is not always the one that you have to onboard,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so like so you have to build trust from scratch in those moments sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let me ask this. So value creator, in different scenarios, it's going to be a different person, right? Or different role. But that might be the internal, an internal person at the customer who's um, tasked with willingly or unwillingly getting the purchase to, like, if we're talking about SaaS, like you use HubSpot Land as an example, uh, getting them from paid invoice to operational system, and like adopter might be an end user. Is that a good framing for thinking about this?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
Um, and that's where while going through that, like let's take HubSpot onboarding um, as an example, which by the way, like SaaS, you have it nice where you get paid first. In manufacturing, like if you don't get to adopter stage, you don't get paid, right? Like if the equipment doesn't work the exact way and people dump lots of money into like making sure it works. If the salesperson promised something, and we got to do extra visits to make sure the team's trained, because the output is not, there's no value realized, and until they realize value, they will not pay you. And that's how the contracts are set up too, right? So in this first step, like as I tried to think about how to make it like in a standardized way, like generally applicable to whoever shows up in this moment, right? I'll ask a question like, who or like, what are the things that get in the way of a successful onboarding?
How long a list do you want for that?
I'd say three, your top three.
Top three. Well, I'm going to put my top one is always as you come from manufacturing, as Deming says, blame management first. I think the number one failure of onboarding is that the company doing the onboarding, the seller, um, plays to not lose instead of playing to win on their customer's behalf. So they have all of these like defensive, small ball kind of processes, and they are just hoping for a decent NPS out of the onboarding, and they um, don't have strong like strike forces who can go after these like quick but lasting wins. And two things that exacerbate that are number one, utter failure to hand off from sales to onboarding or service support, whatever the um, the stated priorities and challenges with the oftentimes hours of discussion and materials provided and promises made uh, as part of the sales process. And then number three, I would say, is that the in this in your model here, the value creator, it's why I asked about this role, is often, in my experience, uh, comes to they don't have a seat at the table, and the adopters too often, if we're talking about adopters as end users, until onboarding starts, right? And so, like you said, building trust from scratch, that is, I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen that, first, second, and third hand of like, hey, we bought system. So like everybody, we're going to be training on it for next week. And the whole team's like, I have 20 hours of meetings next week and then work to get done. What are you talking about? You bought some system I've never heard of. Right. And so then they, they're like, look, we just got to get through this. We have our actual work to do. And then that all snowballs. Right.
Yep.
Those are my top three.
Yep. I think you're dancing all over it. And what's interesting, as you explain it, like we consciously have to think about the different layers of the organization,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes that's because the hero could be a leader who like got excited about HubSpot. He's like, all right, team, we're implementing HubSpot. I hear you. I've heard you. We need more leads. This is how we're going to get more leads.
Right.
So we're implementing HubSpot next week. We got 90 days, right? And nobody else has heard about HubSpot,
Yeah.
especially the sales team.
Yep.
And if that's the moment, right? But this could be an internal, like individual contributor as well, who was tasked by management to go and find a solution,
Hmm.
right? And as I was thinking about that and the misalignment that happens, right? Ultimately, misaligned expectations on some level are my feeling for what truly gets in the way of successful onboardings, because we think there's more buy-in than there is. There's
Yes.
more alignment than there is, and that a quick win over here is going to be seen as a quick win over here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I bucket those under my second bullet point, which is like the total inability to like hand off, right?
Right.
That when uh, I see this often as well when it's not as big a tool as something like a HubSpot or as large a purchase, but where the hero is somebody who has adopted some PLG tool that they can use themselves over in their division, and somebody says like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, what's that?" And then suddenly you have 50 people in an organization all using their own free or individually paid accounts that are exfiltrating sensitive customer data out. Um, but they have a great solution, and then it's like, okay, well, now if we are going to pull that together, right, and like get it on a corporate account or roll, unify that, roll it out to the rest of the org, like that, those individual heroes who piloted this program uh, want the tool, but then are in conflict with value creator, right? Because they all that the wins that I mean, you have so many conflicting like quick wins or value axes there, right? Where the people who are like, I've already been using this, I don't want to like have to figure out what all of this stuff that you're asking me to do and change is, and then you have the people who are like, I didn't want to pay for this tool, and then the people who are like, wait, I haven't been using it, I have to learn it, what's the new thing, all of that. There's so many misaligned expectations because sales treats that like, oh, here's how many seats they need,
Yeah.
and some other people are already trained. It's like, oh, that's that does not address the human challenge, right, of that sales
Yeah.
process.
Um, yeah. It looks like your video might be a little frozen, so
Uh-oh.
maybe turn it off, turn it back
Yep,
on.
yeah, I'll refresh it here.
Um, but yeah, that's where I landed, because if we think about it from their perspective, again, like no matter who's involved, uh, they have to create value for their organization. Like no matter who shows up to start working with a HubSpot build, with any other kind of project execution, like any kind of closed one, the next step, whoever shows up, they have to create value for their organization, right? If it's an individual contributor, they've got to start like running emails, through HubSpot. They've got to start building reports. They've got to, make it work, right? Managers have to help that person. Oh man, especially in accidental admin situations, when we ask individual contributors, especially when they're from marketing, to go wrangle sales, like no, it never works.
Yeah,
But that's what we keep asking. That's a manager's job, right? At this point, when we're talking about teams, right? Let's say coordinating marketing teams and sales teams, like marketing manager, sales manager working together, right? So those are the value, like preventing friction across teams would be like the kind of value that we're talking about here, that manager is worried about, right? And
right.
behind all this, and I hope to publish some more stuff. Like there is levels of like what these levels care about. Like what are they worried about? What is going to get in the way? What do they actually see as quick wins, right?
Yeah,
Um, because then you have leadership, which it doesn't matter how hard ICs and managers are working. Like if leadership is not bought in a way that they create the space to say, yes, it's okay to do the training that you need to do as teams, to take time out of selling. Now you can make time for training, because when that's not explicitly stated, that is one of the first go-tos of a sales team for why they can't put time into this activity, because they've got KPIs to hit, they've got sales to make. And
yep.
without leadership backing us up, it's impossible to debate that effectively, because they are right, right? Uh,
Mhm.
HubSpot wasn't a part of the plan before. I've sold stuff. Why does it have to be a part of the plan now? And if you don't have
Right.
leadership support, that you're just unlikely to win that battle. So in those moments, all three layers have a different level of value because often the buy-in, that leader wants HubSpot to work, right? He doesn't want to waste money and time. And if the value they're looking for is, was this actually good, for the business? Was it a good decision? And if they can't explain to the other leaders, which when it comes to HubSpot, they often cannot, because of the language that we use is so separate sometimes, right? And I had to learn early on, like my role as an IC or a manager is not selling HubSpot necessarily internally, which I try to do. It's it's giving the leader all the tools and language they need to do it. They have to be the ones to sell it, right?
Right. Yeah, and, to the there's an aspect there, it's a little bit situational, but one of the ways that I think we fail to recognize value is, and therefore equip, uh, internal stakeholders like that, or just to relate to, people in the marketplace, whether they are customers in the value first definition of any sort of exchange has happened, or they are just prospects by the old definition, is we have struggled in any sort of tech enabled area. We always get excited about features and capabilities and fail to translate that into like benefits is what, the language we often use for that. But we also fail to really understand their world and say, oh, HubSpot can automate your emails and help you build better pipelines and sequences and sales automation. And we can do this and that, and new features coming out all the time. If you have enterprise, we can do all these incredible things. That's all true. And but that doesn't, that's never sold a software platform. The We back up into so that you can sell more deals, right? Or whatever, win more, increase your revenue. And that's true. Ultimately, that should be an outcome, right? But uh, that's not really a fair promise or expectation of the admin or the agency or the service provider, because ultimately it's the business, the sales team's uh, responsibility to sell. And we don't hear leaders when they say their problem is they just have no visibility into performance. They know they get this many leads and then we get this many sales, but like what's working, what's not. I don't feel like I can trust the data. We hear all of the pain points like that and are not able to help them, along this value first. Like, okay, well, let's talk about what it means that you can't trust your data and what you can do to see if that feeling is true or aligns with the reality of your data or not. Whatever like that journey is going to look like, right? We
Yeah.
just skip to, especially since RevOps has really kind of come in to be a dominant way that we think about HubSpot. Um, Implementation and adoption is like, oh, we do everything for more revenue. It's like, yes, we do, because that's the point of a business. But you can't you can't connect like, oh, we did this cleanup of some properties to get the right types against those properties so that they are normalized and accurate, blah blah, blah, because ultimately it'll be more revenue. It's like, well, that that's a pretty tenuous connection. And it's like, what you're going to get, if you have if you change your state to a drop down from a single line text, is that going to result in 0.0001% more revenue next quarter? No. But it's going to give you the ability to report on, where where the deals you lose are better. And ultimately, maybe that falls out to revenue, but failing to recognize the like the value being the flip side of the coin of the challenges that the like human organizational challenges that customers are having, is where we get those disconnects, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Instead of just going in and say like, oh well, people get a 42% ROI. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's great.
And
Um,
then that's if they follow the standardized process, and we'll just take you through the quick wins checklist,
yep.
and you're going to be good. Meanwhile, there's like no alignment here. And if you can't manage change, like there's no chance in hell you're getting to that 40%.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what, and it's like this whole thing is we have, I know myself in orgs and like, especially external admins, as we talk about it, like it's so reactive that we have to wait and like play the lottery of what the authentic value creation is actually going to be for anybody that's working with HubSpot. Because that takes us to this next phase where it's what we're talking about, the tangible value, right? When a salesperson says, "Oh man, these meeting links are real, man, they really make it easy for me to have meetings."
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, where were you at the 10 training sessions? Like what, for whatever reason, and it's we joke about it as people that support and build out HubSpot, but that's how it works. And does it have to be that way where somebody's going to be meeting links, the next person's going to be templates, um, the next person's going to be the mobile app, right? Like it only happens that way because we have not decided to target like their value structure and what they hold as tangible value, right? And this is what it means. Like you don't get to adoption if they don't realize value. Like even this is where
Right.
even if there's all the buy-in in the world and leadership saying like you got to do this, and there's a lot of carrot and stick. Uh, like what ends up happening when it's not working, when they don't feel the value, you will have some kind of admin doing work on behalf of other people to make sure people get the commissions they're supposed to because the sales people have not adopted the system. They find other ways, right?
Yeah.
And so we see experiencing, so at the IC level, experiencing direct performance improvements, managers being able to recognize it proactively and not wait for the report that says, man, Josh, you're killing it this month, right? Those proactive moments and creating the space for that go such a long way. And managers feel a ton of value when they can have that level of visibility.
Yeah.
And same goes for leadership, except strategic value of the business. Like, oh, we made a bet on attacking this new market or making this change. And I don't have to interview 10 people in my organization to understand whether that bet, paid off or not. I've got data that shows like our close rates are increasing and we're seeing our competitors not do as well. Right. So those are very different conversations. And you can't, like, as much as we want to, this is where like change management is hard, communication is hard. And yes, it would be super easy to just onboard one person and then put all the work on them, right? So we avoid trying to get more people at the table early on because it's harder to get the onboarding done. Like as we've seen it, it's harder to get through the checklist when you have multiple people sharing their own value structures and what they need to see
Yeah.
and what a quick win means to them versus hitting it right up front and saying, yes, leader, we understand that you want that level of visibility and we're going to get it for you. But these are the things like we need to do beforehand.
Right.
Like I know that you can see it for yourself. You can go click on a dashboard that says sales activity and then boom, all your reports are done. It's like, well, we've got some stuff to do, like to make those dashboards meaningful, right? And that's where I think if you can recognize this pattern, we can challenge, it puts us in a place to challenge leadership assumptions about how the process should work. Like the question or the data that makes me laugh the most is asking users, prospective users, how fast they should expect to see value,
Yeah.
right? Like when we don't know anything about the internal workings of their organization, that's where there's a clear disconnect between what the product can do in a vacuum
Right.
and what it can do for this specific organization,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's like uh, I the analogy I make when I'm trying to talk people down from a ledge, of like, well, okay, shouldn't we just be able to like, can you just do like a 1 hour call with person on the sales team and just explain to them how to use HubSpot? And it's like, oh, I mean, I can hit the like if you tell me what the most important pain point for them is, I can hit that in a 1 hour call, and that's not just because I'm long winded, but it's because it's going to uncover the 9 other things that they didn't surface in that request. But it's like you might as well ask somebody like, "Oh, you need to go from where I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, the Las Vegas of country music. If you were to ask me like, how long would you like it to take to get to uh, Sacramento, uh, the airport you usually fly into when you go visit family?" I'd be like, "Oh, how long would I like it to take? Oh, like how about 5 minutes? Like I step out my front door and 5 minutes later, I'm in Sacramento, and then heading up to visit family in the mountains. That's how long I want it to take." Physics has a different understanding of that journey, and I spend a lot of time with leaders and end users who have these value like blockers where they are they fall into the trap of trying to translate their need into a feature or a configuration. They'll say like, can you put this thing right here on the deal, because that's the thing that I look at the most. uh, and yeah, you have to say like, well, let's back up and figure out like, tell me what, because that doesn't seem like that big a deal, like tell me the story behind this, and you chase it back to you know poorly configured properties or views or all kinds of things. How
Yeah.
long that person thinks it should take to get value has nothing to do with like the capabilities of the system, as you said, or the amount of like even just muscle memory and relearning that's possible, or that's going to take for them to use the system in a way that is optimized for them, if we can get down to that. So I spend a lot of time trying to say, um, I understand that you are saying you want this property in this place where it cannot be placed. Um, uh, let's get down to that need, and let's figure out what that need is, and you let me worry about the technical implementation, and we'll get with the admin team, and we'll roll that out, or we'll implement something that will hopefully be even better because you didn't know what you could ask for, right?
Yep.
um, that it's hard to walk that line between you want to come in. I talk about quick lasting value. um, you don't want to come in and just uh, uh, I find we as practitioners can often move faster than an organization can adopt change, right?
Oh yeah.
But so like coming in and being like, okay, well, I'm going to push all of these updates, we can have all of these done by next Friday. Your team will be working with a completely tuned system exactly to your process. We're specialists in what you do, so we know what you need, and we know uh, where your problem areas are. And when you do that, the team would come in on Monday morning and be incapable of signing on to a meeting because everything is different, and that is that's a uh, that's moving fast, but not moving to value, right? To
Oh
realize
yeah.
value, you have to be able to do the thing that you need to do, and whipping the rug out from under them feels fast, but is damaging.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great way to put it. Like instead of quick wins, we need quick value. And like value, like I think very soon, um, Like if the thing is not lasting and sustainable, then it cannot be seen as valuable.
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully we can apply that here. Again, we're trying to be, the whole goal here is proactivity. Because if we know these things, then we know the process that needs to be set up, where the properties need to go, which reports need to be built, so that we can help them realize value as soon as they should be realizing value. At the point, at least, because we want to stay out of the HubSpot versus whatever, like conversations where, well, I think it's just HubSpot is not like this other system, or HubSpot can't do that. So that's why I'm not feeling the value. And it's not, we don't always want to have a defensive posture, but when they've invested in the tool, like they've believed that HubSpot can do the thing at some point, hopefully, if they're buying it.
Right.
And you can be prepared to be like, okay, like everybody work together to create value. And this is the visibility of the value. Like, do you have any questions? Is this still the value that you thought it was? Right? If yes, then this is us actively realizing the value. And in all these motions, and I think I won't beat a dead horse here, because I think advocate and champion, the one thing I want to mention is why the two, like why two different ones, right? We've had champion, evangelist as kind of the
Mhm.
raving fan one, right? The way I think about it, and the difference is individuals and teams who naturally share their success stories within their authentic spheres of influence. First and foremost, the people around them inside their own organization. That is the most powerful value multiplication mechanism, because that, like any adoption challenges, like once they start advocating to each other, there's no faster way to get everybody adopting like the tool or the platform or the new piece of equipment, when they know one of their trusted circle like is bought in and using it as well, right?
Mhm.
And so much of this we think about like people outside of the business. um, but that's like one of my favorite things is when you start to see that kind of catch on internally, like that there are greener pastures ahead, in terms of true value realization and just crushing any ROI calculations and never having ROI conversations ever again, because everybody's in and they're feeling it, right? And we can give them tools to do that. Well, they shouldn't have to like figure it all out on their own. Like, how am I going to explain HubSpot to this other person who has never used SaaS before?
Right.
Right? It's like, okay, well, here's what we're doing, and here's how you're getting value. Here's how you might explain it to your neighbor, right? And all of this is making it shareable, whether that's using our own content that exists to help do that, or just creating a little bit of content like an email or like a Slack message that they could share. A lot of people have places that they could do it, and they feel good about like what they're experiencing, but they don't know how to share it, right, effectively. And sometimes it just takes one link or one statement, just say, hey, start with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about this being internal. I think authentic spheres of influence, in our space, like Sprocketeer is a huge example of that, where I will shamelessly say there's a handful of tools that I advocate in that community for all the time, and there are other pros and specialists in there that also have great examples of things that they've been able to achieve with the tool sets that they regularly recommend. And sometimes we don't always agree on what the best tools for various jobs are because we have different jobs. But it's a fantastic example, of that where I'm advocating. Everybody thinks that like, oh, we'll put together a referral program and then everybody will just share links. And it's like, well, those days are over, man.
Right.
Like some people, if you got 200,000 followers or something, then sure, whatever. But for the most part, it's not worth it. I would rather just tell people like, "Hey, I love this tool. It sounds like exactly what you need. Try it out," and have that just be something that, you know, I love helping people and spreading news about great tools. That is even like, again, recognizing the value that you provide, like providing links and priming people with like, here's how to share. But even things like good micro in a SaaS context, good micro copy in your user interface. Do that by just
Yes.
explaining, like, here we are right now, you user are working on this thing, and I'm just going to have a little header that explains what it is well. That gives them the language to articulate a feature or a capability that they love, or a value that the tool offers, or something that a way that it saves them time or reduces their unknown or risk or uncertainty when they are accomplishing an action. Just well thought out interface and messaging that aligns with how they think about their world and their problems. Uh, Translate that one to one, like value first, right? You're taking an advocate who has realized that value and conform the microscript in their head of like, I did this thing and the language made it exactly clear what I was doing and accomplishing, and it said it better than I ever could. And that's now how I go out and provide value to other people by saying, oh, you had this problem and here's this tool that does the thing, and I'm using that language and articulating that value using the framing of the tool, right? Um,
Yeah. And I think
it's
that's,
incredible.
yeah. And like, I didn't think about it like that, but like the product updates page in HubSpot, like literally, it would be so much harder to do a show like about product updates if there wasn't that card explaining like what the product update does,
Right.
like why it
What
matters,
is it? Why does it matter? Yeah.
right? How, right? Instead of like, maybe there's a list of product updates, but you click on it and it takes you to, the feature
Right.
instead, and that's all it
Or
is,
the
right?
knowledge base article or whatever, right?
Right.
Like, which is
Um,
harder to parse.
yeah. And so I think the difference we're going for here, obviously, I'd consider myself to be a champion because I'm creating a lot of content and doing that like as much as I can because I believe in the product so much. Like, so driving industry conversations around transformation. Um, but I wouldn't necessarily ask a CEO like of a big company to go do this, but I might ask that CEO to come and join us at the conference and be a highlighted speaker, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's where there's a lot of nuance to all this, but when you can understand it, you can pre-build so much of the journey to support like from the beginning. And then as we've talked about so much in this series, building the tools inside of HubSpot to just build that knowledge base of who they are, what they care about, what their problems are. Uh, and if you always know these different layers, especially now with AI in play, like if you have this data and it's structured well, you're going to be able to crush the competition with the personalized experience that everybody already wants and is only going to get like more expected as other people start leveraging AI tools, to start doing 90% of the work so that the humans can do the 10% of this part where it's like, okay, for an individual contributor, this use case or this case study needs to look like this. If we can get a CEO on board, great, but then we're going to adjust it like this. Because then we come back to like what kind of value was created at that level, and if we have to speak to these different levels, uh,
Mhm.
I think different in those different levels. Like as I was doing it, you could probably apply it to the first part, like as well, the path to value. But maybe I just haven't gotten that far yet. Maybe I don't want to make it so complex. But throughout the journey, obviously understanding the key stakeholders who you're going to run into um, gets us to this point that we're gonna do this at some point. I loved Josh's idea before we started the show. Starting to apply this as it relates to HubSpot specifically, because why are we even doing this? Why are we going to so many lengths to understand this journey?
Scroll up a little bit. Our on my video anyway, where our frames are overlapping the.
Yeah,
There we go.
you mean like this? Yep.
Yes, yeah. So we can
Oh,
see
I
it
see. Yeah, yep. Us, our ugly mugs are getting in the way.
of the
Um,
diagram.
so, and we'll just do this to uh, make it a little bit
Here we go.
easier, right? So we're understanding this because we have website pages to build and to try and convert on. We have portals that we want to come and we just want to build them and have people self-serve. And you have to go beyond just build it, they will come mentality and tell them, yeah, if you're in this part of the journey and you want to be favoriting, you want to be adding stuff to carts, wish list stuff, right? Those are different objects in HubSpot as we keep scrolling. You know, you start to build the data model
Right,
in all of the HubSpot tools to scale back, like all of the hubs, like they all have different tools for reasons.
right,
Um, but then when we start building stuff out, we get super, super siloed on just getting the deal stages right.
right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like way too in the weeds because, and also like those are the easiest problems to spot technically in the beginning, right? Like, oh, yeah, some property that was created with the wrong type that comes up in an audit. It's like, yeah, we need to solve that, but if we have everything else wrong, then you know doesn't help to solve the one property that should be configured differently.
Right. So ultimately, that's where, like, if you start from a sales process perspective or like a lead funnel or anything that's not focused on the humans that you're trying to serve and create value for, because we all say we want to create value, but then we create these systems of how the hell, like, no wonder we have so much misalignment and misunderstanding of teams trying to say, like, oh, how do we create value for an SQL? Like, what is an SQL?
Yeah,
It doesn't mean anything. And like I'm starting to see it with AI. Like the more we are like you try to get it to work with like arbitrary like human definitions and language and stuff like that, the harder time it has
yeah,
at actually serving. And it's like whenever anything like that comes up, I was like, okay, maybe we just rethink this instead of trying to like, you know, uh do our human tendencies in a like the new MQL. Like so much of this is just we try to resurface it and rebrand it and rename it. And it's like as long as it's based on this underlying assumption that we can take a human and treat them like an object that can be moved under our control through a
right.
process that we decide, like, no, it's clearly not working anymore.
Yeah,
Right. So hopefully this was helpful. Uh, it won't be the last time you've heard about it. Makes a ton of sense to me. A lot of
yeah,
people are enjoying this kind of new way. And that's my goal. Is like, can we at least just rethink the things that don't make any sense, aren't returning any value? Nobody likes, being accountable like for 1,000 leads just because that's the way we've been doing things. Right.
yeah.
Um, so any last thoughts, Mr. Oaks, as we wrap up today?
No, I think
Does this have a chance in hell of being successful? This change of radically changing the stages that people, design their businesses around.
well, I'm not smart enough to be able to deduce that, but I think uh, it it's coming at the right time of needing to better understand the actual human element of relationships with prospects and customers, people outside of your organization. And uh, we need, both because of AI and just because of the changes that is going to cause, right? Like at some point, one of the big AI companies will figure out a rev share ad model. And so when you ask it about, lawnmowers, it'll try to sell you a lawnmower. Hopefully we're a ways off from that, because that would be terrible. But if you are a company that counts on being able to put ads in front of people who search for lawnmower, or lawnmower repair, or you know anything like that, um, that uh, that top of funnel is going away, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be totally different. So we need to respond to that, and respond to how the people that ideally, you know, want us, our businesses, to help them reach that vision of value in the future. We need to figure out how we serve them now, right? And so we need to figure that out, how to offer them value that wrote mechanical answers from AI that are maybe good and accurate, don't offer, or how we differentiate and provide unique value. So,
Yeah. Uh, well said. I mean, and that's like I totally understand how big of a change like I'm representing here, but this is all about how many structural things do we put in the way of success of our teams, humans on both sides of the wall.
yeah.
Like obviously KPI structures would need to change if you adopt things like this. And I would love to talk to anybody out there that like it's a movement to try and change something like this. Um, but there is a path towards like, either key value metrics or like how do we know that people are actually discovering more? Like we start talking about consumption metrics and we have all this brilliant technology available to help understand these journeys. And then we just use them for things like buyer intent and de-anonymization. It's like, let's do better, people.
Yeah.
Let's take people down the value path. Thanks so much, uh, Joshua, for letting me, share this new framework. Um, we will get back to the series that we it was really fun last time to get into HubSpot and make some simple builds that can actually support like the change is in the mindset. That's the complex part. The cool
Mhm.
part is that you can do some very easy things in
Yeah.
HubSpot to support what we're describing here. So I look forward to getting back to that with you next time.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye bye.